This is the Prostate Pit Stop. One man's journey, everyone's fight. With Keith Smith and Matt McCleary. Sponsored by the Ferry Project. Visit our website, ferryproject.org.uk. Well, hello and welcome to another episode of the Prostate Pit Stop podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Matt.
Hi, and I'm Keith.
And we are talking mostly about Keith's experience living with prostate cancer and his experience of going through treatment and all of that. Now, if you've been following this podcast series, you will have known that Keith was diagnosed. He's had an operation. And since then, Keith, we've been waiting for results, haven't we? You needed to go back in to get results from the operation. So can you just catch us up?
Yes, so what I had to do was I had to have a PSA test, and they also looked at what's called the histology around the prostate, and I've been waiting for those results to come through. And I'm pleased to say I got the results last week, and the news is wonderful. It's great. It's I've got the all clear. So what they've been able to say is that my PSA test shows that my PSA levels are now, in their terminology, negligible, in the doctor's terminology. And because they're negligible, that means they've managed to completely remove the prostate, and they've completely removed the prostate cancer. So I asked the doctor straight out, does that mean my prostate cancer has gone? And he said yes, which is wonderful. It's one of those moments where you don't really know what you're feeling at the time when he says it. What he wants to do now is, just to be certain, he wants me to have 3 monthly checks, which will be around the PSA tests. So I'll be taking PSA tests. I'll have to pop and see him from time to time, or we'll talk on Teams or on the phone. But he officially gave me the all clear, which, to be frank, too, is 10 days on now. I'm still in a mild state of shock.
Yeah. So no prostate cancer, because you don't have a prostate anymore. So how can you have prostate cancer? But what about, testing to see if it might have spread, or if there's some other kind of cancer in your body? Is that all sort of being monitored as well?
Yeah. So I'm not a doctor. And so anything I say here has to be caveated by the fact that this is my understanding. Okay. And I apologize to those medical professionals, but basically what they've said to me is that since it's prostate cancer, that the cancer itself, if it had separated off and gone around my body, would be in prostate cells. And that's why the PSA test is so important, because those cells would have still registered on the PSA. The fact that my PSA levels are negligible implies that there are no prostate cells anywhere in my body. And since it was a cancer of prostate cells, I have no cancer. As far as other cancer concerned, they did all those checks before my treatment, and they gave me a full clear bill of health everywhere else. So that was why they advised taking the prostate out. So hopefully this should be the final all clear. They want to keep an eye on things because, things happen. But yeah, I should be all clear. And certainly in myself, it feels that way. But one of the strange things about this is I've been asymptomatic throughout the whole thing. So
Now, with your sort of, is it 3 monthly checkups or whatever, where they try and monitor things sort of going forward? Do you know what form they will take? Well, obviously you're not going to have a prostate exam because you don't have a prostate anymore. Is it something as invasive as that, or is it just sort of a phone call and a cup of tea, or what kind of follow up are you expecting? Right. So I know you haven't had one yet, but what do you think it's going to be like?
So based on the discussions we've had, let's say there's several follow-ups, because I'm still in the recovery process from the operation. So I've got follow-ups from that, and they're separate, and we can talk about that in a minute. As far as the actual cancer is concerned, what they're focusing on is the PSA reading. So I should not have a PSA reading, and they will keep checking whether I have it. Now,
how do they take PSA readings?
Oh, it's a blood test. It takes 1 minute, and you get the results the same day. So it's very comfortable in that sense. Now, at the same time, the consultant said for the next, maybe up for as long as 2 years, he might well have some brief meetings with me, a telephone call or whatever, just to check. And if they see anything, then they'll get back in touch. But the assumption is, as long as the PSA test is coming back as negligible all the time, that will be it. And at the end of the 2 years, the suggestion is it will become, probably an annual thing or whatever. So there, it's actually very light touch. He was the consultant himself was just very pleased with the fact that my levels were so low, and he was saying that that is a good indication, and he can't see any reason why that should change. So it's just one of those things where, one day I went into hospital and the doctor said, you've got prostate cancer. And, type of thing, 6 months later, I go into the hospital and he says, you haven't got prostate cancer. And in some respects, it's that same disbelief, because one was, where did that come from? The other one is, where's it gone, in that sense?
I was going to ask you about the emotions of it, because I know when I had cancer, and then sort of being given the all clear, you kind of expect, I don't know, what you see in the movies or whatever. Oh, we don't have cancer. Everyone goes, woohoo! And sort of, hooray, hooray, hooray. And then life gets back to normal. It took a long, long time for life to get back to some sense of normality for me, like years after the fact. And hearing the good news, yes, it's good news, but emotionally, I don't know. It wasn't that same kind of whoopee sort of that they get in the movies. How emotionally was it for you when you were given the all clear, and how clear was the all clear? Because for me, the doctor kind of said, "Oh yeah, well," and we're like, "Oh, hold on, are you actually saying that the cancer has gone? Well, what are you telling me?" Because the delivery of the message was such that it was quite kind of, I don't know, complicated and caveated by certain things and all the rest. You're like, well, let's just rewind. Are you saying that the cancer's gone? And we had to sort of get a bit specific. Was it a similar thing for you, or how did it work? And what about your emotions?
Yeah. So the actual event was to some extent complicated by the fact that the consultant, the person who did the operation and so on, was actually taken out just before my appointment to go and deal with a medical emergency. And so I was sat in a waiting room for an extra hour while he had to deal with the medical emergency and then come back. And what was clear was that he was slightly hassled about his time period. So when I went in, everything was all very a bit matter of fact. He basically said, your PSA level's negligible. There's nothing. The histology, he hadn't got all the results. I haven't got the histology results, but it's not important. There you go. And I went, well, just can I just be clear? What does that, like you? What does that actually mean? And he said, well, it means that the prostate's gone and so on. I said, so you're saying that I have not got prostate cancer? And he said, well, yes. I said, oh, right, excellent. Right.
You could have led with that, yeah.
Well, I was sat there and I said, well, that's really good news, isn't it? And he went, well, yes, it is. And I thought, well, you're not exactly bouncing on your chair or anything, and so on. And so in that sense, it was a bit of an anticlimax. And of course, for medical professionals who are dealing with all sorts of people in situations, and as I said, Heath just had to deal with a crisis and just come back from it. He's not on the same emotional journey as I was on. So it was a bit, in one sense, it was an anticlimax. In another sense, it's very good. And so, yeah, it's coming to terms with all that. And as you say, what's interesting about it all is I don't know what you expect on the inside. Yeah, so your body doesn't feel any different from the moment before he said it to the moment afterwards. So yeah, it's getting your head around it all. And indeed, I still think I'm getting my head around it all, because it's now, everything went into a strange type of situation where you're basically just dealing with the disease and dealing with your own health and treatment and everything like that. And then suddenly it's just finished. Because if they hadn't got it, if the PSA test had come differently, then that meeting was to talk about the next stage of treatment plan.
Well, yeah, speaking about stages, I mean, for me, I had a few different stages. It wasn't just you've got it, treat it, it's gone, because I had cycles of chemo, and then I had to have 2 years of maintenance top ups and things with meeting with the doctor in those 2 years. So I was sort of under medical sort of, intense sort of assistance as it were for like 2.5, 3 years before they then said, okay, now it's clear type thing. So, but at each point they don't, and I think quite rightly so. They don't give you a massive forecast into sort of the distant future. This is what's going to happen. This is how it's going to be, which is what you want. You want to know all the ins and outs when you first start. But then as you go through it, you start thinking, well, actually, yeah, they don't want to tell you too far in advance because they don't know what's going to happen,
No,
and
that's
we
right.
don't know what's going to happen, and it could all be rubbish. They might have to change tack in 2 weeks' time and do something completely different. So yes, okay, they don't give too far in advance sort of plans, as it were. So okay, so each kind of stage you go thinking, okay, what's going to happen next, and then they say, okay, well, this is the next stage. Okay, fine. And then you get through to the end of that next stage, and then you go to the meeting, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, what's going to happen next? And
Yep.
and even going to the meeting where they tell you, oh, you're in full, because I'm in full remission. I haven't been declared cancer free because the type of cancer I have, medicine says they can't completely get rid of it. So when I went to that one where they said you're in full remission, it was a kind of case of okay, and so what's next? You know,
It's
and
exactly right. That's right, because that's exactly it. And but for me, I mean, I'm in a fortunate position in the sense that it was in a very localized area. They've taken it out, and they can actually
yeah,
say, "Oh, that's what they're saying at the moment." As far as they're concerned, it's gone. Um, so in that sense, what I've got to do now is learn to live with the consequences of the operation and so
uh-huh.
on. Um, I'll talk about in a minute, but and I'm learning to do that. But yes, the emotional stuff as far as right, it's gone. We don't have to think about that. I can actually start thinking about life again and what happens next. Yeah, it's a big change, just a massive change in your thought process. And the other thing that I've noticed after it, the biggest thing is I was expecting to just feel emotional. You know how when you're in the middle of it all, you forget. I was finding that I was getting fatigued quite quickly and stuff.
Mm.
I was hoping that, I don't know why, that suddenly somebody would have just gone, oh right, here's a shot of energy, you're
You just
okay again,
bounce
now off
back,
you go.
and
Yeah.
yeah, you're
and
back to
and
normal.
actually, whereas
It
I'm
takes
still
ages.
finding, yeah, I'm still finding I get tired much more quickly than I did before, and stuff like this. And so I've now got to adjust my expectations of what being, in a sense, if you like, being well is like normally, and whether I can build up from this and stamina. And I don't have any, I've got no experience of any of that because I've never had an illness like this. I suppose the sepsis is the nearest, and the sepsis took me a year to get over. So I'm still very early on as far as getting over this. It's only 3 months since the operation and all the rest of it. So
And what we got to do is we are going to do, I know you said in a minute, but we got to do another episode actually after
yeah,
this one, about sort of where you're at in recovery wise. So yeah, so stay tuned. Click on to the next episode after you've listened to this one, because that's where we're
yeah.
going to be talking about all of that stuff. So yeah, great news.
Wonderful news. It genuinely is. We're planning a holiday, Matt. I'm planning a holiday. I'm going to go
Hey, good.
away. I've retired. You see, that's the other thing that complicates it, just before we finish, is, of course, I've retired as well. So I'm in a strange position of trying to get my head around what does retirement look like and what does
Uh,
retirement as cancer-free look like. So it's quite
yeah,
interesting,
yeah,
really.
yeah, yeah. No, great. Well, thank you for joining us. Thanks for sharing in this good news with Keith on
Yes,
this episode. And if you are on a journey with cancer yourself as well, I hope and pray that one day you will receive the good news as well.
exactly.
And yeah, keep going, keep going.
Yes.
That's the main thing, because there are times when you feel like just giving up. So keep going. Don't lose hope. And yeah, hopefully this has helped you. Share it with a friend or a family member, whether they're going through cancer or something similar themselves, or indeed if they are supporting someone who is going through it, so that they can gain some insight into what the other person might be going through. So thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. And yeah, we'll see you soon in the next episode of the Prostate Pit Stop. But for now,
See ya.
goodbye.
Thanks for listening to the Prostate Pit Stop, sponsored by the Ferry Project. Make sure you subscribe and share.